Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series. Today's guest has a very unique story there that he's going to share with you today, as well as a very diverse practice. So, thank you so much, Ayaz, Mehdi, here for joining us today. Perhaps maybe we can start by you telling us a little bit more about yourself and your practice and how you got to where you are today.
Wow, that's a pretty loaded question. There are no ends to it. So I'll start with saying, pronouncing my name correctly for everyone. It's Ayaz Mehdi. Now, that being said, where do I start? So born and raised in Saudi, moved here about, it'll be 20 years this coming August. I did my high school in Mississauga, my undergrad in Ottawa, um, went to law school in England, came back to Edmonton, joined the Edmonton Police Service, very briefly, and then moved back again to Toronto, did my articles in personal injury. There's no surprise there. And then I joined my first practice. Well, when I got called to the bar, what is it now? About 4.5 years ago. I joined a firm. It was a relatively small firm. It was called Mehdi LLP. It was funny because one of the managing partners' middle name was Mehdi, and it always felt like that my name was already on the letterhead. We had a good chuckle about it at my interview. The good thing about the practice was when I came in, there were about 3, 4 senior lawyers. None of them did litigation work. So that gave me quite an exposure from day one. I did pretty much everything that walked through the door. I had done my articles in personal injury, so I did a bit of personal injury as well, family, civil lit, criminal, estate litigation. I was there from 2017 until this January, so about give or take 3.5 years. And I did make, partner after my first year. Things were great. I just, in during the pandemic, and I was quite busy during the pandemic. I think I'm amongst the lucky ones who can say that. That being said, this January, I just thought that, I could do it on my own, and had a wealth of experience, had a wealth of files. I opened up, what do they call it? Hanging the shingle. I don't even know if we use that term anymore. I certainly didn't hang any shingles. I just thought when I was moving away, I think I had it all planned. When I left, the only thing I didn't plan was having an office. And I found out the hard way that although we were doing so much remote practice during the pandemic, as soon as I told my clients that I'm leaving, and they were all more than happy to stay with me, I don't think I lost a single client. A few of them did raise the issue of, oh, where's your office? And I was just like, oh, where my home is. And I live a bit further than, I guess, main city. I live in Sutton. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's like cottage country, end of 404. So I realized quickly that I actually needed a physical office space, even if I never really use it. And even now, I barely use it. I just go there maybe once a week. Fridays is my day to be in the office. This is actually still my home office. I've literally made a copy of my actual office at home. So the only thing that I literally just need to put myself there. My laptops, everything is like, it's all remote. I run a very good remote practice. I have one assistant, one clerk, and one secretary. Two of them are licensed paralegals. One of them is NCA student. She's finishing her master's, and I'm hoping that she'll stay. And one of the paralegals who just got licensed as well. She was a lawyer back in India as well. So I'm guessing that one day she'll be following down that path as well. They all work from home. I don't make anyone come to the office for the most part. I think I've barely seen them since I hired them. We practice through OneDrive. I use a remarkable. I don't know if you guys know what a remarkable is, or do you know what a remarkable is? It's a paper tablet connected to a cloud. Everyone has access to my notes. And the rest of it, we're connected through WhatsApp, through emails, through Zoom all day long. It works perfectly well. Everyone enjoys it. Everyone has the independence of doing what they can whenever they can. We keep busy. Does that answer most of your questions?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's let's kind of take it back then, and because
Of
it's interesting.
course.
You started with going and have like let's say a cup of tea there at the police force in Edmonton. What was that like, and how does that kind of help you now when you do a little bit of criminal work on the other side?
Okay, so what happened was, moment of truth. I don't know if I should say this, but I'll tell you the truth. I I think when I finished my undergrad, I found law school to be a way of, staying away from adult life. As bad as it may sound, I was just like, oh, great, 2 more years in school, no worries. I came back and I had to write my NCA exams. My parents were living in Edmonton at that time. And while I was writing that, I've always had this interest in, the police. I still think that, at that time I certainly believed in it. Was that as a police officer, you always have this job satisfaction. I always used to say there are two professions that have the most job satisfaction. One is being a doctor, and the second one comes close to is being a police officer. So that was, I guess, the motivation behind it. So I broke the news to my parents that what, I want to join the police force, and I had done all the interview process, everything. I never met anyone. I knew what needed to be done. I got it done. I got a job offer. My parents were quite upset. They were like, typical South Asian parents. They're like, well, we didn't send you to law school to become a cop. And I'm just trying to explain to them that, you have to understand it's not that easy to become a cop. It's a good pension, and it's a very good salary because it's a high risk profession. And, I tried to explain to them that, yeah, it's communities, great hours, like, you look at everything, and stability, economy up or down, you're always employed because, police officers, you always need them. So I think that I'm a very practical guy. That was the motivation behind it. I got recruited, and I was at the headquarters in Edmonton downtown. But you have to understand, at this time I wasn't really a police officer. I was a recruit constable. We hadn't even gone to the academy yet. In Edmonton, the academy is like they have it in the city, so you don't actually live there. So that, I think, runs about 5-6 months. Then you're on probation for, I don't know, 12-18 months, that kind of stuff. I never got to that. So I was never really uniformed. I didn't have a badge, but I was working at the headquarters in civilian. I had the IDs to get everywhere. I had access to the systems. I learned a lot. I saw a lot. So when you say how it helped me in my profession, yes, I learned quite a few mistakes that police officers routinely make, and they don't think much of it. But I have kept that in my mind, and the other good thing was I was getting paid a first year constable salary at that time to do my NCA exams. I even got time off to study and write the exams because it was continuing education. There's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I think I had this very principled approach about the police force and how there's camaraderie and things like that. I just found it personally, in my experience, that there was a bit too much politics. And I say this too. Today I respect what they do. It has never put me off the force as that they're doing. It's us against them or anything like that. It was my personal experience. That's fine. I got the experience. My parents were the first people who were so happy when I told them I'm quitting. They were like, "Thank God." They're like, we're glad you did it. Now you can move on. So that's a bit of a story there. I think I've answered your question. The way it helps me in practice is I generally know the mistakes sometimes the police officers would make. So I keep out a keen eye for them in when I'm reviewing disclosure and stuff like that, generally. So that's my story on that side, I guess.
That's interesting. At least you didn't go to med school and then decide to become a police officer. I feel that
I
would
was
have been
never that
different.
smart. Let me just tell you this. I'll tell you the funny story. When I had finished law school and I went back to my undergrad and I was walking through, well, no, I was talking to one of my friends from university, and we're still friends. I was just telling him, I was like, you know what, bro, you could have done med school because we finished law school. So I don't know. I think we couldn't have, but one can always aspire to do it. I don't think I was ever that smart. I would be honest to say that grades. I was that student who probably stayed close to C or B. Um, there's that famous saying in law school, and I'm sure you must have heard it before, that students who get A plus become amazing jurists. Students who get A become amazing professors. So, something like that. And then students who get B, I think that's what they become professors or academics. And it's the students that get C that become amazing partners. So, I took that to heart. So, I kind of believe it in now, but hey, stay in school, do well. I'm sure getting great grades does open a lot of doors for you. My experience was a little different. I would be honest about it. I always say this that it seemed like every time I stepped somewhere, doors kept on opening. I think I'm lucky. It's my prayers from my parents. I certainly believe that, because honestly, I don't think I was that great. You know, I had a good work ethic. I will always say this, that one thing that makes the difference. My friends would even say this today. They were like, no matter what we were doing, I have never heard you say that you handed in an assignment late. They're like, for all the years I've known you, you were never late at handing something in. And I was like, yeah, even if I did bad work, I handed it on time. I think recognizing the importance of time and others' time and deadlines makes a huge difference. These are small things that, play quite a role, if you want to say, in your success, perhaps.
Yeah, it's interesting there, right? I mean, or D is for degree or whatever it was there as well too. So you went through the NCAA process, and I have students, who come to my paralegal class, and they're also going through the NCAA process, and they're thinking, oh, what's kind of a backup plan, or maybe let me see if I want to practice law here. So was your goal always to come back and practice? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the NCAA process is like.
Sure. So I'll tell you this, I never went to anyone for advice in my life. I was always a book learner. My attendance record is quite poor. And the way I'll tell you this is, there's this funny thing someone said to me once. My first motion in Superior Court of Justice in Toronto downtown, I was an art degree student. My principal sent me there just to get experience. And I'm sitting there in the back benches. And the judge asked me, what are you doing here? I'm like, Your Honor, I'm just a student just watching this. He's like, that's great that principals are doing this. And there's a student who does their motion. It was a motion, I believe, it was a VAG order. Anyhow, that's a different story what that is, but let's just say it was a simple motion. And the student comes up to me and he shakes my hand and he's like, hey, how's it going, man? And I was like, great. Do I know you? He's like, yeah, we were in the same law school class. I was like, oh, great. He's like, yeah, you're the kid who never came to class. So it's okay. I get it. You don't understand. You don't recognize me. So that being said, let me tell you this. I always learn from the books. So the process, I think when I went to law school in England, I'm sure if I tried, I may have gotten into law school here. It's been a long time now, but I think one of the reasons why I went to law school wasn't the right reason. I wanted to travel Europe. And I was just like, oh, the best excuse, I'm in law school. So parents will be happy. They wouldn't, raise much of a fuss. So I went there, but before I went, I'll tell you this, I knew exactly what needed to be done when I'll come back. I didn't just, get up in thin air and went somewhere. I had done all my research meticulously. The plan was there. I knew what I needed to do when I come back. So I went there, finished it up, came back, did my assessment right away. I think in the back of my head, the police experience was there because I was working at the bank, BMO at that time, and then did my application process. And I was like, you know what? While I'm doing this, it's going to take me at least a year and a half to write the 7 exams. Might as well get some other experience. And if I like staying at the police, I'll just stay. Who cares, right? To finish it up. So I think the first try wrote 4 exams. The next time I wrote 3. So I was done. How I studied for it, I think at that time, I'm sure there were people who would sell notes for NCA. I bought them. I respected notes. I've always respected notes. It's worth it to get them rather than, going through the books and making it yourself. As bad as it may sound, respect the process. Those notes were worth it. That $500 or $600 that I spent, they were completely worth it. So I bought them, I read them, I did the exam. I think when I was writing the NCA exams, one of the things that I was thrown off, I was a little surprised about was there were times they would ask us to write a judgment. And I was like, are you joking? Have you ever read judgments? So I'm not writing something like that. But I think what they were really asking was what your legal opinion is. If this is the side of both sides' argument, do you understand the law? Do you know what will happen? So I think that's what it was about. Certainly notes help. And again, at the end of the day, you need to respect time. Finish your answers on time. Whether they're good or bad, you'll find out soon because, what they're not marking you out of 100. They're either telling you you passed or you failed. So don't, the idea about being perfectly correct, I think it's more like, and the truth is, you got to know the law. You're not passing those exams if you don't know the law. That is a God honest truth. So know the law because you can't memorize it. You can't understand it after law school. So if you were not learning the law in law school, it'll be tough to apply it today. And even today, there's such novel issues that would come up, and I would think of something that, you know what, I remember we studied this. And even if I don't know the exact answer, I can go back and find out what I need to look at. So how the process was between me and you, it was easier than law school. You were just reading and, refreshing yourself and writing the exams. I can appreciate that, for some people, it's not that easy. And I'll tell you this, it has nothing to do with one being smarter than the other. I think it's more to do with how you do tests, how you write tests. So I would say my recommendation would be buy those notes. They're worth it. Some smart guy sat down and did the work for you. Respect it.
Now, after that, I think sometimes as well, foreign trained or internationally trained lawyers or whoever going through the process there, they get through the exams and think, okay, it's great. I did all my NCA exams, or now I could go and write the barrister and solicitor's exams now. But one of the components that's left as well is the articling positions. And you shared a little anecdote there of the time you were at the back of the courthouse. How was that process in terms of securing a position and then going through that process?
So I'll tell you, when I started looking for articles, it was already January. Already tough to, all the major firms have done it. So let me just put it out there. Look, unless you went to Harvard and you got an A+, the idea that I'll be working downtown for Dentons, it can happen. Don't get me wrong. It can. I don't stop anyone from aspiring to work on Bay Street. Okay? Ain't nothing wrong with it. I'll just tell you, be more realistic. The best thing you can do as a lawyer is become reasonable with yourself too. That's the biggest lesson you can learn. You need to temper your own expectations. If you're not good at doing that, I don't know if you're ever going to help anyone. Okay? So that is the starter. I didn't go to any of the Bay Street firms because you know what? I was like, I am one student among 5,000 who are competing for a job that they're looking for straight A's. I'm sure they look for other stuff too, but that's probably, that's how they first, take the stack out. So when that was out, I looked at this in this way. It was a numbers game. Okay. Straight up, it was a numbers game. Uh, at the stage when you're doing your articles, and you have to understand, when I did my articles, this Ryerson LLP program, I think it had started. Uh, and between me and you, can I just say one thing? If you ask me personally, I've only heard good things about the Ryerson program. It's amazing. I think it prepares you much better for practice, especially if you're going to be a sole practitioner doing the LPP. I've heard. Okay, I know a few people who've done it. They opened up their offices right after it, and they're doing fine, right? With articling, what I did was, it was a numbers game. So what I did was I essentially went on Google, all the GTA cities, typed law firms there, went to everyone's website, reached out to everyone with a what do you call it? At that time, it's been that long since I've looked for a job. Let me just a cover letter. Thank you. So a cover letter and a resume, and I reached out to everyone, whoever was looking for. Because what I didn't do was send blind emails to the info accounts. No, I didn't do that. Like even even if you're going to do something like this, do it the right way. So everyone who gets your communication does not think like that you've just spammed them. So read up, find out who's responsible. If there's no one responsible, then reach out to the info account. Say, who should I reach out to if I'm looking for a job? So that's what I did. So let me tell you this. I think in 2-3 days, I'm still in Edmonton. I perhaps would have reached out to about 300 to 500 firms. Okay. And it may be more, but that's what my memory tells me today. I did that. Then was the process of hearing back. I heard back from one, and they asked me to do a little assignment. We did the interview on phone. They offered me the job. I was already planning to drive down for Edmonton. It was personal injury. I always appreciate, I knew at that time too, they're the most articles available. So I was prepared to do the work because I was like, what? I don't have to practice personal injury. I can just do my articles, become licensed, and then go into wherever I need to go into. That was one. Then on my way in, I got an offer. Well, I got an interview offer from Ottawa, right by the Ottawa courthouse. I don't know if you know where it is. On Elgin, right? This building was overlooking the courthouse in Ottawa. Great firm. I went there for an interview too. I am sure my grades put them off, which is weird. They should have looked at my grades. Anyhow, I never got that. I started here. I think my idea was that at least, even if I'm in personal injury, I would, learn more. It wasn't that experience. I was only there for a month. I got another offer with someone who's very experienced, gave me the assurance that I would learn something from her. So I went to her. I switched articles. It wasn't at that time, I hadn't even put in the application yet, so there was no issues. So I switched. She was great. She was a sole practitioner practicing for 21 plus years, did personal injury. I learned great things from her. But I think the thing that I learned most from her was how to run a business, especially a law practice, where you can cut costs, where you need to get money from. It was great, great, great experience. I have only good things to say about my principal. Her name is Alina Steinberg. She's still running her own practice. Amazing, amazing, amazing principal. So much to learn from her. As soon as my articles were done, I think I didn't want to practice personal injury, so I had to call it there. But that was my way of getting it. I'm sure everyone has their own way. I do not stop anyone from having a goal and then going after it. But I think the reason why I'm doing well in litigation is that I was always reasonable. I was reasonable with myself too. I settled with myself quite a few times. Nothing wrong with it. This life is all about settling for the right things. Do not think of it as something that, oh, you know what? you have to settle. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying know when you have to settle. And instead of wasting your time, learn from wherever you can.
Yeah, so from there, then you picked up the same name there in the with the partner, spent a few years there. How did that kind of shape you then to make that decision? I'm ready to go and have my own practice.
Okay, so 2 days left in my article. I haven't applied anywhere. I really have no idea what I'm going to do. But 2 days in my world is a lot of time. It has always been a lot of time in my world, and you wouldn't believe how much time it has been. But anyhow, 2 days in my life is a lot of time. Maybe not these days, but it was at that time. 2 days was 48 hours. So I'm at the end of it, and I'm like, okay, well, it's about time. Let's do the exact same thing I did when I did my articles. Numbers game. Let's play it again. The only thing I didn't do this time was I wasn't looking for personal injury. So I made sure that part was subtracted. I did get interview offers at 3 places. The first place was, I'm going to forget the name of the firm, but the Walmart offer. What's the name? Access, right? So I went there. They're doing something great. They're doing something new. What they're doing, I believe, personally, these are my opinions, of course. I think they're running a retail practice of law, right? If you can say that. So it's more of a numbers game. My only question when I went through the first interview process, the second one, first of all, it was the hours, right? Because you're working retail hours. It's Walmart, right? That's one thing. So you don't have weekends off because you could actually be working on the weekends. Not that I get them off these days, but Anyhow, that was one issue. The second issue was what I wanted to know was how do you deal with complaints, right? Maybe you're servicing 1,500 clients a day. How do you deal with the complaints? I just thought that was a tougher model. I didn't think that for legal practice or for myself personally, I'm sure it is fine for legal practice. For myself, I just realized that it was just like, they do perhaps the simplest of stuff and then they stop because it's retail, right? Prices are fixed. Between me and you, guys, I became a lawyer too. Not change the world, but change my world. So I went there. Then I had another interview at this. I think it was a personal injury firm, and I think the reason why I went there was because I was like, maybe they'll be open to different areas of practice. I always believed in myself that I was a self-learner, so I was like, I'll learn, right? I think the salary that they offered was not something I actually was. I was prepared to work for $50,000 a year. I had just gotten married. $50,000 a year sounded like everything at that time, and I think they were offering like 35 plus commission. That didn't work out. Then I came to where I started my practice. The managing partner is still a great friend of mine. Only good things to say about him. We're still very close. We're big sports fans. We travel the globe watching sporting events. Anyhow, me and him, we just hit it off. I think within the first 5 minutes, he told me, he's like, the job is yours. Tell me when you want to start. The only thing that he did with me was he told me there's no salary. We're going to have commission. Like it was a billing split, really generous billing split, right? The sky was the limit. I think I was a little hesitant when I took it, but I will tell you the best decision I ever made in my life. I made, I'm not going to tell you the number, but I did so well in my year that it takes a few years of Bay Street to make that kind of money. Okay. But that depended on how much I was willing to learn, how much I was willing to take on. From day one, my schedule was what I wanted. That independence and how much, there was no cap. You can make as much as you want. And especially when I walked through the door, I was new, I was fresh, I was hungry. I took on all kinds of stuff. I learned, I did everything. He used to always tell me, he was like, one thing that I've always loved about you is you have never said no to something. You've said, give it to me. I'll find out what needs to be done. He's like, well, one of the things he talked about, we did this Bitcoin fraud case. I'm not going to tell you anything more than that. But anyhow, it's a very, very novel issue. I don't even know what Bitcoin was at that time. Okay. So the client was already on their way to meet me. And in that little time, I learned everything that I needed to know so I could have an educated, informed discussion with the client. So I think that is something that helped me. It still helps me today, but I'll be honest, today I stick to more towards the areas that I know I want and I want to practice. You know, but again, once in a while, I'm always up for a challenge. Knowing something that I don't know has always intrigued me, intrigues my staff. Let me make this very clear. I am nothing without my staff at these days. Okay. They are the backbone. They are the support system. You know, and the greatest thing is they learn. I get the help that I need. Everyone's happy. And I hope that, you know, they learn good stuff from me. So that's that.
So how are you finding it, I guess, running your own practice? What's different than you know, than all your
You
other
know,
experiences?
honestly, for me, things were so great even when I was at the other place. There hasn't been much of a difference in that sense that I'm more independent or anything. I always had independence there too. I took days off whenever I wanted. I went to the office whenever I felt like it. I took vacations as long as I want, whenever I wanted. I think the main difference, honestly, is the money. That's why I left. So, surely more responsibility. I have employees now that I need to make sure that I pay. But you know, I've been blessed. My employees are great. It just works out. We get it done, and I don't think there's a much of a difference in sense of saying that something is easier or something is hard. It's smooth. It's flowing. I would like to say until I hit a bump, I'll tell you about it. But you know, it's been flowing.
And so of the areas you practice, so what's sort of the main areas that you're focusing on now, and how has that been going for you?
It's great. I still do family for the most part. That's the bread and butter. I do, well, there's a bit of estate litigation these days going on. Not a bit, a lot, I'm sure. I get some of that. Some criminal work. Criminal work is, I'll say to an extent, there was a serious file, but luckily enough, they withdrew. They stayed the charges. That was one of the tough files. Apart from that, it's normal. I shouldn't say normal. I should say it's non-serious offenses at this time. But that doesn't mean that I haven't dealt with serious offenses. I have dealt with serious offenses too. These days, it's at this time, that's what the file load is when it comes to criminal matters. For state, good, interesting files. Civil litigation, kind of slow these days compared to what I used to do before, but there is some work there too. But family is where I think most of my time is spent. I think family is, I think it's family that got me into the other areas because a lot of them are so closely connected that, I think it's a gateway to other areas. And I want to stick to these areas now. I do not want to add anything else. It keeps me quite busy. I think at any given time, I may have anywhere between 70 to 90 files, which is quite a lot. I remember I used to say that, you know, as a litigator, you can only keep 25 files. I found out with the help of capable staff, you can triple that number easily and still be fine. But yeah, that's the way things are right now. That's how it's going.
Yeah, so for business, maybe you can kind of walk through a family matter that comes in, let's say, that perhaps ends up in litigation. Sort of what are the steps involved in let's say the first time they walk in and say, hey, I have this issue here. Let's say it's they're going through a bitter divorce, or they're planning on, maybe they don't necessarily know it's going to be bitter yet, but how does that kind of all work? Or you can substitute it for any kind of family matter.
Oh, you don't want to know the legal process. That's not what you're asking for. You're just asking me how things go, correct?
Yeah, just kind of not necessarily the legal process, but kind of walk us through.
Okay.
From
So yeah, these days no one really walks in. Most of my clients either call me, Zoom meetings, that's how we do it. Generally it starts with me getting like my normal question is what's going on? Tell me. Lay it on me. Tell me what's happening. Getting the family history, if the children are involved, if there's property, because there's only two disputes in a marriage, in a family file: money and children. Okay, you take the children out, money. Money is still something that can run you for a long time. But the same thing, children could be one thing that could, you know, make you spend years. The first thing I always tell my clients is that look, family litigation is lucrative. That's why I'm doing it. Okay, you got to know that. So if it wasn't lucrative, I wouldn't do it. When it's lucrative for me, you got to know money's coming from your pocket. Okay, so be smart. The spouses who are reasonable and they settle between themselves, contentious or non-contentious issues, they save a lot of money. And I explain it to clients this way. Every time you and your ex fight, me and the other lawyer make money. We love making money. That's why we're here. So you decide to be smart, good for you. You decide to be stupid, good for me. I clear that out. Then I tell them that even if one party is litigious and being stupid, both of you will end up paying. So instead of just antagonizing, don't ever do something that just antagonizes someone because it's not going to help you. So I think getting the history, then telling them reasonably the things that they're going to get from court. Even when I look at applications, I had this client today where I went through his whole application. I told him the things that he will get, the things he won't get. And he needs to, and I told him, I was like, one thing that, I found not everyone, I think most of my colleagues, hope 99% of their are upstanding, amazing counsels. And surely they do not make attempts to raise legal fees, but there are a few lawyers who would do that. I always tell my clients that, sometimes it's not just the clients, it's the lawyers who would run the tab. I would say that very few, maybe one or two like that. Most of the lawyers that I've known and I've come across are upstanding, really good colleagues, understand the law, understand what needs to be done. So my general advice is always to settle between yourselves, do a separation agreement, don't go to court. It's going to cost more money to you. And this is how I explain it to, let's say if I had a father who was the client, I would tell him that, look, I've looked at the numbers. Your wife is asking, let's say you owe her $10, she's asking for 12. I tell him it this way. I'm like, either you can give the mother of your child, the woman that you've loved for the last 20 years, maybe not anymore, either you can give her those $2 or you can give it to me. What do you want to do? Because I'm cool either way. You give it to her, I'm fine with it because you're an upstanding guy. You give it to me, I'm fine with that too because you're still an upstanding guy. You're standing for what's your right. So after giving all that speech, yes, there are times clients who are just so wronged by the process sometimes. Very few clients. These days, I would tell you, clients are smart too. They're money conscious. They understand what is being explained to them. They understand what being really reasonable is. But there are those few. When a client doesn't listen to my advice, my thing is I write it down and ask them to sign it. I very recently, a client of mine is going through a divorce, much older client. The husband is a millionaire, has offered her, let's say maybe 30 cents on a dollar. And she says, I want to take it. I'm saying, I'm quite old. I don't really care. I'll take it. And I've explained to the client that, you know what, that's great. I respect that. I completely understand. All I need you to do is sign this authorization that I told you of your rights. And she's just like, while she signed it, she's like, you must think I'm stupid. I'm like, no, I don't. I think you're smart. I think what you're doing is you're telling me that, even the 30 cents that you're giving is more than enough for you. And what you don't want to do is have this relationship with this person that you've been together with 50 plus years and make the family dinners awkward. I respect that. So they're smart clients, they're clients who are not smart, they're clients who are emotional. My job is to be never emotional, never pick fights on clients' behalf, even if clients want to. The word counsel carries serious respect. One must recognize it, that it is not about money. Trust me. I'll tell you one thing. The goal of every lawyer's career is, sure, to a certain extent, we want to make money. That's why, we stayed in school for so long. And that's why we work the late hours. But I will tell you, the secret of getting paid what you want to get paid is be honest. Do not cheat your clients. Give them their right counsel. And there's a reason why we're called counsel. Give the right counsel. Because your clients, for many people in litigation, I always say this, they'll only see litigation maybe once in their lifetime. For them, this is the only experience they will have with the legal system. So make it right, make it as pleasant as you can, given the circumstances, and let them leave with the respect of law. Not that, I got screwed by my counsel, I got screwed by this person. Sure, there are people who would always think that, because you know what? I always tell my clients, I'm like, we're lawyers, we're not magicians. I can only tell you what the law is. Because if I was a magician, I wouldn't be a lawyer. I can assure you of that. So I think counseling, telling clients the right advice, even if that means that you may lose the client, because there were a lot of clients who come to you and be like, I've heard you're a tiger in court, you're a lion in court. And I'm like, no, I'm a reasonable guy. And I'm always a reasonable guy, whether I'm in court or outside court. I'd like to believe that. Maybe my wife wouldn't agree. I can assure you of that. The whole world could say that I'm the most reasonable person on the planet. My dear wife may not agree. She may respectfully disagree with that.
Now, it's also interesting you've been, in terms of your own practice here, it's been entirely through remotely in the pandemic, right? I mean, what can you share from that experience? I mean, in terms of whether it's advocating on Zoom or meeting clients virtually, or your staff being all at home there. What can you share from that experience, and what's worked for you in getting through any of those aspects?
Between me and you, I love it. I have almost a 3-year-old. It has been a blessing for me. I haven't missed a milestone. I saw her crawl. I saw her walk. It's been great. My 2-year-old thinks that daddy doesn't have a job. He actually lives at home, apart from living at home. So that's a great thing. I think practice-wise, it's been great. It has saved so much travel time. I think it has saved my clients a lot of money in my travel, alone. Advocating through Zoom, I think people would have their own say. I love it. I think I'm doing amazing. Wouldn't you say so? I'm owning this place. I'm just joking. But, it's been great. I've always been a great public speaker, whether on Zoom or in court. It's made no difference for me. I think I like it. It gives me more opportunity to take better notes. Remote practice is my way. I would recommend to everyone. It's good for employees. It gives them more independence. It gives them more family time. Because you have to understand, litigation itself is very stressful. So if I'm stressed, I can believe that my employees are stressed too. Because this stress has to go down somewhere, right? So I try to do what I can. I think remote practice is the future. Clients like it. I only have one client right now, and his file is almost done, who doesn't use email. Everyone else is, they're getting familiar with it. They're getting used to it. I make the except. Well, I still see my clients if they want to come see me in person. I've never stopped anyone, especially these days. But I think it's made it so efficient because I have invested in technology. Anything that can shave any time off my employees' time, I will invest in it. And
That question there. sorry, it's not a question there, just from one of the students, just kind of following up on that, is that sort of the future trajectory? You know, are you going to continue to run your practice mostly virtually in the future, or are you going to see how things change?
I like it. I think I'm going to keep the independence from my employees. I believe it makes their life easier. We're saving the planet. We don't kill trees, and we do not, we're trying to help out our prime minister with not bringing more emissions. So I'm going to keep it like this as long as I can. I don't think there's any issues with growth. As long as there's independence for people, they will always like this motto. I still have a firm. I have an office, a very nice office, actually. So yeah, if you want to work in the office, be my guest. I just don't. But, it's a mix. It's going to stay a mix to a certain extent, I believe. There's still firms who've, implemented all the way back, come to the office. Everyone's got to do their thing. I'd rather save that money and invest in my employees. That extra rent, the gas money that they can save, good for them. I'm all for it. Ain't nothing wrong with it. But I will try to keep it as virtual as I can. I'm sure the market will dictate to a certain extent what I can continue to do. But at this time, it seems like this is here to stay. I'm going on a 4-month vacation, but I'm still at work. I'm going to make all my court appearances. So yeah, it's been great. I don't think people want to move away from it. But, no one can tell the future. We didn't know we would be here today, about 2 years from now. No one would have thought we'd be making closing arguments, we'd be arguing motions, we'd be at trials via Zoom. So brave new world. I believe, if you do not accept the technology and accept the way the wind is blowing of time, you just get left behind. That's what it is.
Perfect. So thanks so much for taking the time here and joining us, sharing all of your wonderful insight there. I was wondering if you can cap it off with any final words of wisdom for all the students or anyone else listening. And thanks again so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. I really hope that I passed on something useful. I would end this by saying that, you all have a different path to take. You all took a different path. Just because I sucked in school doesn't mean that, you need to do. Just because I skipped my classes, do not think that's the right way of doing things. I've never regretted it, but I'm sure, it may have helped. I have always wondered. I would never be able to go back, but I'll tell you this. Respect time. Respect your opposing counsel. Remember that they're humans just like you. They're doing a job. You don't have to make it personal. You cannot. This job is very stressful, especially when it comes to litigation. You're making decisions for, sometimes for people that would, change their lives to a certain extent. So be considerate, be reasonable. Always remember that a happy client is the biggest referral source until you retire or die. And an unhappy client is the best one-star review that will never go away. So you get to make decisions as to whether you want 5-star reviews out there or a 1-star review. Because trust me, word of mouth referrals is still king. So you do the right thing for your clients and they will remember you for the rest of their days. That is for sure. And you will get that respect that comes with the word counsel. It's a different feeling, but only if you remember that clients to a certain extent are not just numbers. Don't get me wrong. I want you all to know I love making money too. I am not saying don't make money. All I'm saying is make sure your clients get that worth of spending that money. And the rest of it, be honest, be real, be realistic. That's all I'm saying. Be realistic because, this profession has no place, perhaps, for people who are unrealistic. Yes, there are people who will always break barriers. Okay? Me saying that does not mean that I'm saying that stop innovation, stop breaking barriers. I'm not saying that. But all I'm saying is if you know 5 plus 5 is 10, it will never be 12. Know that. There is not an argument that will make it 12. So be realistic. I think be realistic, be reasonable, be fair. Because remember, sometimes sometimes the legal thing may not be the right thing. It may not be the ethical thing. Your colleagues, this industry, word gets around. People remember if they work with you, and if you are fair and reasonable. So don't think of every case as your last case. Remember, practice of law, especially litigation, is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So take the time to drink the water, learn from your defeats, be humble when you win, if you win. I don't even know what win means these days in litigation, because, if both parties spent $500,000, I don't think anyone won. We did, because I always win. Let me just tell you this. I never lose, because I try my best to get my bills paid. But that being said, apart from the lighter side, mental health, I would tell you this, that it's very important these days. I think we do not talk about it enough. We should. There's nothing wrong with it. Anyone can have these issues. It's great to talk about them. It's great to have some place that you can essentially disconnect and forget about work for a little bit. Because let me tell you this, work is not going anywhere. And I always say this, I'm like, when I started the practice, I was this kind of guy who would always finish everything because that's how I am. Like, this thing is on my schedule, gotta get done today. These days, even on my drive back from work, I was like, okay, these things I'm gonna get done before, this Zoom meeting. And by the time I got here, I was like, you know what? I'll put it on my schedule for tomorrow. So prioritize. You'll be prioritizing every given minute of your day. Use a schedule. It can do wonders. No matter how good your memory is, and I like to say I have a great memory, you need a schedule. Trust me. And that's that. Learn from others. Be nice to yourself too.
Perfect. So thanks so much again. I wish you all the best and enjoy your weekend, everyone. And I hope to see you all back next week. Take care.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you, guys. Take care.